Today we're going to be drawing using 1-point perspective. So lately all we've done is do objects that are cylindrical. And so that means that no matter how you turn them, they basically look the same. Now we are dealing with objects that have corners to them, and for those we're going to use perspective, and we're going to start with 1-point perspective. So on your page, please use that as your title and put the date on it as well. On your paper, we're going to start by dividing it in half just by drawing a line that goes through the page. So a horizontal line that goes across the page. And we're going to add a single point to it in the center and label it VP. There are two words that I want you to learn. So that line that we drew initially is what's called a horizon line. And so a horizon line is where the sky meets the ground. You can see it the most easily if you go to the beach and you see where the water meets the sun, or like the sun sets on the horizon. That's what that is, the horizon line. So where the sky meets the ground. The mark that we made, that point that we made in the middle, is called a vanishing point, and that's the point where your perspective lines, the lines we're going to draw today, are going to meet or disappear. So please write these two definitions down on your paper pretty high up, and then they won't really get in the way for us today. So your horizon line and then your vanishing point. Now, your horizon line and vanishing point don't have to go in the middle every single time. You can put them basically wherever. Your vanishing point is always going to be on your horizon line though. So let's get started. Like I said, today we're going to be dealing with boxes and things that are a little more rectangular or square to start off with. And so the first thing we're going to do is draw a square, and we're going to make these cube-like objects today. It's really important that you have a ruler or a straight edge if you want to get these more exact. So starting off with a square, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're going to start out with a shape. And for us today, that's going to be a square, or something that looks pretty close to a square. Afterwards, you're going to take the corners of this object, so these corners, and bring them towards the vanishing point. Again, this is where you would use a ruler or a straight edge. So I'm going to take the corners of my shape and draw lines from them to my vanishing point. The only thing is I will not draw the line, or I will stop drawing the line if it goes through my initial shape. So I can't draw this one because it would go through my square. So I won't draw that corner. After you do this, you'll have these new big sections. So section 1 and section 2 over here. And you're going to create the sides of our box now. So we have the front, and we're going to create the right side and then the bottom of this. And so all you need to do is add parallel lines to this section. So this section goes up and down. And so the line that we create has to also go the same way. So we're going to create a line that goes vertically up and down in that section. For some people, that's a little bit hard to do. So I end up with things that look just slightly off. And you can see if I extend these lines that they're not parallel, they would eventually meet. So one way to avoid that is to make a little bit longer lines so you can double check that they're actually parallel. Some people also draw lines and figure out where they want to stop. Even though there's a trick to figuring out how to make a perfect cube right now, that's not really necessary, so we're going to eyeball it. So just one parallel line straight up and down. The section below is horizontal, And so we're also going to make a horizontal line. And it's important that it starts from that corner because we want to close out this box. Again, this is the point where people aren't really sure where to put this line because they do want it to be parallel, but they end up making mistakes because it doesn't seem right. So really try to aim for parallel lines. Use whatever trick will help you the best. And you can see if I extend those that they are parallel. So now I have my right side of this box and I have the bottom of it. For us, we're going to color that in to make it a little bit easier to see. So to color it in, I like to deal with a light, medium, and dark side. And for now, it doesn't really matter what the light source is. That's not something I really need to concern myself with. So just going to shade using my pencil. For me, I'm using different colors since I'm on the screen. A light, a medium, and a dark. So use your pencil to do the same thing to shade it. This is an optional step, but once you have a lot of objects, you'll end up with a ton of these different perspective lines. So shading it will really let me know which ones are objects and which ones are just lines. Which objects you meant to be in front and which objects you mean to be going behind the others. And there you go, did a cube. Our next one is going to be down a little bit lower. And we're just going to do the same thing as before. So start by making your shape. Again, we're going to connect the corners into the vanishing point. And we're not going to do the corner that's furthest from us because it would go into our actual shape. And you don't need to mark out that you wouldn't do that, but for today, I'm just going to mark it out as a reminder. Parallel lines mean the first one is going to go horizontally, and the second one is going to go vertically, like so. You can make wider boxes, end up with more rectangular shapes. Today I'm going to stick to the cubes. This time we have our front, the top, and the left side. Again, I'm just going to go in and shade. You can do a light, a medium, and a dark. And it's really up to you. So now we have a box that's below us, and to the side we have a box that's above us and to the side. And so what I want you to notice is that an object that's above us and to the side of us, we're going to see the bottom of it because it's higher than us. We're going to see the side of it because it's to the side of us. This vanishing point essentially represents where I'm seeing from. So if this object is below me, so I would see the top of it, and since it's towards the side, I can see the side of it. So right now we're going to draw an object that isn't above or below us, and in order to do it, we're going to draw a line directly on the horizon line. So this time it's not higher or lower than me, it's just next to me. This time when I take my corners to the vanishing point, I don't have as much work to do because this one would go in it and this one would go in it. So I can't do those sides. This section is going up and down, so I'll also make a line parallel to that. So you can see that I only see the front and the left side this time. Can do some simple shading once again to show that. And there you have a box that's next to you. If you want one that's above you but not to the side, or below you that's not to the side, then you would just see the top, or you would just see the bottom of it. So let's quickly write down our directions for how you would get all of those. So when I'm not with you, when we're not going over it, you have how to draw using 1-point perspective. So the very first thing that we did was draw a horizon line. After that, we drew a vanishing point, and it has to be on that horizon line. Third is you start by drawing a shape, and that's very important because there are other types of perspective that don't start with a shape. This time you are, and for us we're going to start with shapes that have these corners to them. Once you have your shape, you're going to draw lines from the corners of it to the vanishing point, and our special rule is that it has to stop if it hits the shape. Lastly, you're going to close the sections with parallel lines. Afterwards, you can clean up and shade if you feel like it. 2 things to remember. Like we said before, you'll see the bottom of objects that are above the horizon line. If they're above you, you'll see the bottom. And the opposite is true. So you'll see the top of objects that are below the horizon line, or below you. Now that we've done some simple shapes, we're going to move on and try something a little bit more complex. So we're going to do another shape that's based on squares or based on rectangles, but we're going to do the letter T. And if you break up the letter T, it's just a long rectangle like this, connected to another long rectangle going vertically instead. So a nice T shape. It's a little off. So like this. Afterwards, I can clean it up. Alright, that's good enough for our outline right now. So we have our shape, and then we're going to take all of our corners to the vanishing point. Again, the special rule is that you have to stop if it hits the inside of that shape. So we dealt with all the lines that are on the left side. Let's deal with the right side now. So on this side, I can't do this corner because it would cut into our shape. And this corner I can do, but then I have to stop once it hits the inside. So I don't not draw it. I have to still draw it, but I just stop at this point because it would cross into my shape. Lastly, I'm not going to do this corner, but I can do this one right here and bring it inside. Okay, so now I've taken all the corners that I could, and I need to close the sections with parallel lines. I think it's easy to just start with one that's easy to see and then deal with the rest of it. So I'm going to start right here and make sure I have a parallel line. So this section right here just gets a vertical line like that. This section gets a horizontal line. Now, if you imagine that this was originally a rectangle, the other side would match up with it. So over here, don't get confused as to which line you should draw, but break it down into its original parts if you need to. All of my lines should meet at their corners. And that's it. I'm all done. So now I can go back and shade. I want to make sure when I shade that all the parts that are facing the same direction are the same. So this is the front, nothing else is going to be the front. For our medium, this is on the left side and this is on the left side. And then all the rest are towards the bottom. So I'll make sure that they all get treated the same way. And there you have a T. The last two things that I want to show you are tricks. So I'll show you what it's like to have an object going lower and an object going behind another one. So let's start with an object that goes lower, or that lines up with another one, or stacks. So we're going to start with this green box that we made originally. And I'm going to kind of figure out where I put the sides of it. And I'm going to make essentially a copy of that box that I made, just a little bit lower. If you would like to instead make it next to, then you would get the tops and the bottoms. If you want to make it higher, then you would put it higher. So you're just moving this box wherever you want it to go, but you're going to base it on your original dimensions. Afterwards, it's super easy because you just treat it the same. Bring everything towards your vanishing points. I'm going to line up the sides as well. And then I'll color it in. So because this box is getting closer to the horizon line, it's actually closer to me, so it would block off that area. And when I color it in, you'll see that. If you want to avoid having it block another part of your object, then just make it even lower so they wouldn't touch in the first place. And I'll finish out with the bottom. So there you go, an object that's just stacked lower. The next one we're going to do is going to go behind. And so as we said earlier, we have the front, the top, and then the side of this. This is the left side. So our next box is going to be stacked behind it. All we're going to do is draw a new left side by adding parallel lines here. So this will be our new left side. I'm going to draw parallel lines up at the top. This is going to be my new top. And then I need to draw the front. And remember, the front would have been just a square. So it would have been here and there. But this is behind the other one, so I'm going to cut off any points that my original box would have cut off. Again, coloring it will help you see it just a little bit better. So we have the top, we have the side, and then we have the front. And that gets cut off and blocked by the shape that's closer to us. And that's it. That's how you do 1-point perspective. So your practice is going to be on a different sheet. Do 5 different objects. Make sure one of them either stacks or goes behind another one. They can all be cubes if you want to. If you want to do a letter, then you're welcome to. Just don't do anything that's really round or has holes in it, because that makes it a little bit more difficult. So stick to things that are based off of cubes. That's it for today. Next time we'll be dealing with 2-point perspective.